Hello again. Another video of stuff I'm trying to get rid of. To put it nicely. And it's all N64 games. Some good, some not so good. Actually, most of these games are really good. So let's take a look down here. Mischief Makers for the N64, strangely enough. This is a Treasure developed sort of action platformer. Really interesting game. And for some reason the sticker's missing. Yeah, this is, I wouldn't say it's hard to come by, but I never really saw it in the shops when the N64 was out. Back in the day, it was more of a retro thing you see on the shelves nowadays in Game Station. Well, they haven't completely abolished their retro section. And yeah, it's really, really good, really unique gameplay and fantastic visual style as well. Basically everything you expect from Treasure. Wave Race 64, much like Wave Race for the GameCube, it's a launch title for the N64, and it's really good. Just in terms of the technology, especially for a launch title, it looks fantastic, it plays fantastic. All these games, sadly, are the PAL versions, so they're restricted to 50 Hz. But even with that in mind, this is really fluid and plays really well. What else do we have here? This one's fantastic. Command & Conquer for the N64 as well. This is really unique. Basically, Westwood took the original Command & Conquer game, which at this point was probably 3 or 4 years old. That's not right. 2 or 3 years old. And basically re-rendered it all with 3D graphics. So even the terrain is 3D, but the units are actually quite detailed 3D. And this supported the RAM expansion pack for the N64. And with that in play, this really does look like quite a fantastic title. It handles just about as well as you can expect an RTS game to work on the N64, which isn't brilliantly, but considering they redid the graphics, it's such a unique title, and not that easy to get hold of. It looks fantastic, it does play pretty well, and everything bar the FMV is intact from the original versions. Like I say, it's worth playing just for the visual style, and the fact that it supports the expansion pack. And high res. You don't have to use the expansion pack, you can run it in low res mode without it. And frankly, it runs actually better without it, because most of the games that use the expansion pack used it for better graphics at the sacrifice of the frame rate. And N64 games didn't have great frame rates to begin with, so maybe not the best idea. So like Tetrisphere, I like the original Tetris just like everyone, and I don't have that much of a problem with the different directions they try to take the series, but this is absolutely brilliant. It is basically Tetris in 3D. You can't really summarise it without just playing it. It works brilliantly. There's a number of gameplay modes in it. You know, some cooperative ones versus ones. A great multiplayer game. I don't know why there isn't much interest in this on the net, but it's fantastic and easy to come by. What's not easy to come by, or at least I've found, is, just in the paper bag, Turok 3 Shadow of Oblivion. The last Turok game to grace the N64, I think Rage Wars came out just before it. Again, like graphically, this really pushed the N64. It uses the expansion pack, much like Command & Conquer, so not only does the game look brilliant, like I say, it's one of the best looking titles on the N64. I enjoyed this one, but there's definitely something missing from this that was in Turok 2. Turok 2 had a sort of an awe factor to it that made you want to keep playing it. While this does look good, it somehow lacked that, and I think they lost direction a little bit in the sense that it wasn't so much about dinosaurs anymore as, you know, generic sort of bad guys shooting at you. Too much of a futuristic vibe. I just felt detached from the previous games. This probably is the pinnacle of the series, Turok 2 Seeds of Evil. Again, uses the expansion pack. Looks fantastic, plays fantastic, amazing soundtrack, decent multiplayer. If you played the original Turok and liked it, then this is definitely worth playing. Absolutely blows it away. One of the best shooters on the N64. I'd say probably the third best shooter on the N64. Second best would be Perfect Dark, which I don't have a copy of here. First best, GoldenEye. Again, if you've got an N64 and you don't own this, then I don't know why you've got an N64, because this is the pinnacle. It's absolutely brilliant. You can't really say much more than's already been said about this game, but if you have a copy of it, drop me a line, this could be yours, because it's just the shit. Another great N64 shooter is Doom 64. This doesn't get a lot of love. Basically, it's got a completely different art style to the original Doom games. It almost looks like they modelled the characters with sort of plasticine and then rendered it in the game, but it's got a really unique look. It's got the atmosphere from the PlayStation versions of Doom, with that sort of really bizarre music and not the upbeat metal stuff that you had in the original Dooms. Yeah, gameplay wise, I mean, it's Doom. It plays fantastic, it looks fantastic. I don't think there's a multiplayer component for this, but it's such a good game. The level design is really fantastic. Yeah, it's Doom. It's Doom 64. So if you're really into Doom and you want to play something different, this is the one for you. What else do we have here? Body Harvest by DMA Design, which is basically a precursor to the 3D Grand Theft Auto games. This one's, I think, bogged down by the fact that their vision for it was a lot bigger than what they can actually execute. It runs slowly, the textures are sort of bare, but at the same time, you know, you run around shooting stuff, you can do what you want, you can steal vehicles, so a lot of what would be in the GTA games is already there, just in a much slower, less detailed fashion. It's a really unique title. It's certainly worth looking at, especially if you're into the GTA games, or if you're just into kind of obscure N64 games. What else do we have here? Mario 64. I don't need to say anything about that, but you know, if you want it, here it is for trade. Again, like GoldenEye, sort of the pinnacle of N64 gaming. Absolutely brilliant. Another launch title, Pilotwings 64. Really good. I prefer this to the SNES version. It just seems the SNES version, as good as it was, I don't think the controls were exactly as tight as they could have been. Granted, it was a very early game for the SNES, so that kind of explains it. With the N64, the controls are much looser. You feel like you're actually just in more direct control of what you're doing, and as a result, the game is much more playable. Graphically, this is pretty good as well. It's got a decent draw distance for an N64 game, and a pretty expansive environments that look really good. South Park, which is actually a first-person shooter for the N64, much in the vein of Turok, GoldenEye. If you're really into the series, it's good for that reason. There's a lot of nods to things, and it's acted by Matt and Trey, and that it is a decent game. But if you're not interested in the series, then this is kind of a bland first-person shooter that's probably not going to keep you entertained for very long. I think again this uses the high-res expansion. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it does. What else do we have here? Gauntlet Legends, which apparently is quite hard to come by. I don't like this at all, really. I was hoping for something in the vein of Diablo, well, like the PlayStation port of Diablo, but it doesn't really provide you with that. What it does provide you with is kind of a dull hack and slash adventure. It's 1 to 4 players. Like I say, it's quite sought after. It's decent. It's just not exceptional. WCW versus NWO World Tour. If you've ever played an Aki game or an Aki wrestling game for the N64, then you already know what this is about. Again, absolutely amazing. The sequels were a lot better, but that's not to discredit this one. This is fantastic and it's well worth owning. It's basically really a purist wrestling game, and you just don't get that anymore. The SmackDown series is just almost an atrocity at this point. It's completely untested shite that they put out each year. This is so much more polished than any SmackDown game in the last 5 to 6 years. It honestly is. And it may seem strange to say that when you see how primitive it looks, but the gameplay is just light years ahead of what you get nowadays. Star Wars Rogue Squadron. This was a 3D powerhouse when it came out for the N64. Looked really good, plays really good. I mean, the reason people played it at the time, I think, was because they'd had a taster of this game here, Shadows of the Empire, and the Battle of Hoth level in this really showed you what the N64 could do in terms of 3D aerial combat, I guess. And as a result, people were probably crying out for this kind of game, and this is just a full-on 3D flying game. Like I say, really expansive environments, looks wonderful, good draw distance for the N64, the Star Wars music's there. It's just a really solid title.